Hey, it's Aaron from GameEnthus.com. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a game where players are going to be competing to become one of the greatest composers in what is considered by many to be the classical era of music. And that game is Ovation. Ovation is an engine building game from Looking Glass Workshop. Ovation was designed by Kirsten Lunde. Intended for players 10 and up, playable from 1 to 4 players, so that means yes, there is a solo mode. And it plays in about 40 to 60 minutes. Ovation players are going to be relying on the fame from patrons, fortune, and of course, the music. Okay, we get it. Let's not make this a running gag. All right. So the first decision that needs to be made is how many players there are. So let's say we're going to play a 2-player game. That means every player needs to figure out who the composer of their choice is going to be. Let's just say randomly we're going to choose Mariana Martinez and Joseph Bologna. Let me just start off by saying I do appreciate the look of all these player boards. You can see the piano got away from me there. You can see the piano like steps that I'll show you how they work in just a moment. And there's also a bio on the back of all of the player boards to give you more information about the composers that you've chosen. Feel free to freeze here if you want to read more about Mariana Martinez and Joseph Bologna. I may or may not come across just how these are sunken in. So take my word for it. All right, on to the setup. So what exactly is Ovation? Ovation is a engine building game where players are trying to earn the most legacy points by the time there's only 2 of the Maestro cards here on the far right side. The Maestro cards are also worth legacy points of their own. For example, this one is called the Efficiency Expert. It says use 5 music tokens in 1 turn. That's a really good turn, by the way. It's also worth 5 legacy points. So back over to our composers over here. We have Mariana Martinez. We have Joseph Bologna. If you look at the top of their board, you'll see 4 sections: Seek Inspiration, Seek Fortune, Seek Patronage, and Perform. They both have a marker here, which is used to designate which action they are taking on their turn. And they both start off with 1 music note, which is used in the engine building portion of the game, where you're going to be getting cards that will be tucked underneath the various sections, and you'll be able to use those bonus actions by spending 1 of your music points. You'll get it right back as soon as your turn is over, but they are finite per turn. I'll go over each section briefly. So for the inspiration action, what that allows you to do is allows you to adjust your joy. Yellow is joy, the blue teardrop is sorrow, and the red fire is passion. So you could either move 2 different attributes. Let's say I move passion and sorrow up 1, or I could move one of them up by 2. So either moving 2 different ones up 1 or 1 up by 2. That is what the Seek Inspiration action does. And each player also has a special ability. Joseph can spend 1 less inspiration if he is playing a piece on the violin, like you see these over here. The Seek Fortune action pertains to the fortune cards. There's always going to be 5 face up for players to choose from, and their purchase price is in the lower left corner. So as you can see, this one is called Commission. So this one is worth 1 legacy point at the end of the game. It also costs you 4 inspiration. Being in the game, everybody has 3. So I have 1 of each of these, so couldn't afford this just yet. Let's say, for instance, I had 2 joy, and then I spend those 2 joy, spend the passion, spend the sorrow, totaling 4. I could purchase this, and if you look here, this icon is the patron icon. So I would tuck that right there. And on subsequent turns, if I take the patron action, if I happen to be in this area already, the patron action allows you to attract patrons to come to your performances and give you certain bonuses. These are the costs in terms of inspiration to attract those patrons to support you, if you will. So let's take Lady Genevieve here. Lady Genevieve will give you 2 points for every sorrowful song that you play at the end of the game. However, Lady Genevieve will deduct a point for every performance you do that includes a piano. So you have to be careful on the patrons that you attract, because you could have some that give you points for something and then up with some that take away those very same points. All right, back over to the seek patronage. This action basically allows you to attract one of these patrons, and they wouldn't go under your board unless they were a type of patron that has an engine building aspect to it. Lord Morzin here has a more engine building type of action. So this one will get tucked under fortune, as it has the fortune icon. So what this little arrow means here is if you take the fortune action, you get to increase your sorrow by 1 point. The patron cards are either for final scoring, like Lady Maria Teresa here, or Lady Genevieve, or they have sort of an engine building thing. They all pertain to fortune, which would be all the cards that will be tucked under here. So if you were to seek patronage and take that action, what this card here means is if you take a patron action, that means you also get to take an inspiration action. And then the last action is to perform. So perform pertains to the concert music up here or the chamber music. If you look at the row for the concert music, you'll notice that some of the requirements have a little more detail. So let's say for the flute concerto, it requires that you've already played a flute performance and have 3 passion and 3 sorrow in order to play it. There's no engine building aspect to this card in particular. You would just put it near your player board or what have you in order to show that you played it and make sure that you get your 6 points at the end of the game. The chamber music will often precede the concert music because the chamber music allows you to fulfill some of the requirements for the concert music. For example, I mentioned the flute concerto. So were you to play any one of these 3 here, that would satisfy the requirement here. One of the benefits of the performance is players to the left and right of the active player can give you a ticket, meaning they come to watch your performance, and it's a win-win. So adjacent players could hand you a ticket and only you look at it, but the ticket also has the icons that have inspiration on them. So these don't take any actions to do, but if you have any 2 matching tickets, you can adjust your inspiration as necessary and do as many times. So if I had, let's say I had 6 of these, I could theoretically adjust my inspiration up 3 points. Every 2 tickets that have one of the inspiration symbols on it, you can adjust the inspiration on your board. And, or if you want to save them to the end of the game, every 2 tickets is worth 1 legacy point at the end of the game. And the benefit of other players giving you tickets to your show is if you are performing this mass, other players give you tickets for it. Yes, you get the benefit of the ticket, meaning you can adjust your inspiration for every pair of matching icons, or every pair gives you a point in the game. However, players that give you a ticket get to adjust their inspiration by the very inspiration on the piece you play. So if Mariana Martinez were to give Joseph Filoni a ticket to this mass, if he played it, she'd be able to adjust her sorrow and her joy by 1, because that's what the piece involves. So it's definitely a win-win for doing that, but it's optional. You don't have to do that. If you feel as though maybe you're giving someone, a certain player, too many, they played a whole lot of music, yeah, that could be a thing. Music notes also can be discarded permanently should you wish to refresh one of these rows. That's typically a late game thing, but that can depend on how you're playing. These are really precious in that they enable you to really work through your engine, because without them you can just take, with just having the 1 you start off with, you can only take 1 bonus. But if you have an engine where you can bounce around, because it doesn't matter what order they're in, you can have 4 different things under fortune and you can do them in any order, and that will matter, because if you're doing one that lets you get inspiration but then lets you bounce back over to perform, the order in which you activate them really matters, and how good that turn can be. And I'm going to very ironically mention that this is the first player marker. That should have been one of the first things that I said, but it wasn't. Here we are. And that the player who would go first is, according to the rules, is the player who most recently saw a live performance. If that doesn't work, decide whatever way works best for you and the group that you're playing with. But the real point of the game is to earn these Maestro cards over here. So the 4 that I just randomly chose are Efficiency Expert. So this means use 5 music tokens in 1 turn. That's these tokens that I just mentioned, which is very possible to use all 5. You have a really good engine. This one is Symphony Star. Perform 2 symphonies. Symphonies are going to appear in the concert music row. There's in this deck. This deck is not quite as large as the other ones. So perform 2 symphonies. You would earn this. And earning a Maestro card during your turn is not an action. If you've earned it, if you earn 1 or more, you're able to pick 1. You only earn 1 Maestro card per turn. Even if you earn 3 in a turn, which, wow. You have to choose 1. And once there's only 2 left, that signals the end of the game. You finish the round, and then you count up all of your points from all the cards, from all the music that you played, the Maestro tokens themselves, any potentially pairs of traded in tickets, and then of course your patrons. So to summarize, your turns in Ovation are theoretically fairly simple. You are going to be picking one of the actions to take: fortune, seeking patrons, or actually playing music. My initial play of Ovation kind of reminded me of a game like Splendor, except that it had more going on, which I'm okay with. In Ovation, you are very dependent on using those fortune cards and some of the patron cards to build out your engine just right. So on your turn, you can use those music notes and really maximize the number of things you're able to do in order to get a good handle on, or to eventually get those Maestro cards that everybody's going to be vying for. Maestro cards are worth a decent number of points. Should you not get them, it's not really the end of the world. You can easily make up for it with more musical compositions and even some of the patron scoring as well. Provided that you hopefully thought ahead and didn't have a bunch of patrons that dislike the piano or the violin, when all the while you've been playing nothing but the piano or the violin. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that this was a prototype. A lot of the art, especially art for the patrons, is going to be a lot more varied in the final version of the game. And that is Ovation. There is a link in the description should you wish to support this game on Kickstarter. It should be running for another couple of weeks, or if you're watching this past this week, I already have it. That's going to do it for me. I'm Aaron from GameEnthus.com. This is Ovation. We talked about this. We talked about this earlier. Anyway, take care, stay safe, stop moving, and be blessed.